To the third and final wrap up of the music that was 2021. I must say I thoroughly enjoyed my listening throughout the year. Absolutely huge amount of great music, a lot of which I'd never heard before. The artists and the bands. It's really widened my scope, and I'm now going to continue with my top 25 albums, and I'm going to go through them as a ranked video, and I hope you get to listen to some of them because they are in the top 25 because of one reason. They are great albums, and there's a combination of eclectic mix of genres, and I'm sure there's something there for everyone. So then let's get on with it. Let's get started with the first one. So at 25, For Those I Love, For Those I Love. Electronic hip hop here, very electro conscious. It's a harrowing, melancholic ode to a lost love who we lost through suicide. That's the backdrop to this collection from David Balfour. Reference early on to Dancing Till Day at a warehouse rave. So you get some idea of the pulse on this album. The most potent moments come when he sets the lyrical darkness to music that sounds euphoric. Dance music is certainly what it is, but it's sharply moving. An album inspired by The Streets, a band that I am not familiar with from the UK, but they are associated with the beginnings of hip-hop. So that's my 25 offering. Now moving up to 24, it's an album called Henke, and it's a collaboration between English folk provocateur Richard Dawson and an experimental rock band from Finland called Circle. I was really impressed with this. Dawson spins seven historical yarns. There are 7 tracks. Each tale's linked to a specific plan. And the band are very grungy post-punk prog style and evocatively sound on Lily. Methuselah is a song which owes some sort of nod to a quick Hawkwind style gallop. And then the 6.5-minute picture is a blast of art rock pageantry. And it's got a lot of groove. It's riveting, and the synergy between the two camps, Dawson and Circle, is infectious. Get to listen to it. It's called Henke. 23 now. This is Wary and Strange by Amethyst, Kia. I actually reviewed this on my last new releases video for the year. She's a Tennessee guitarist and singer, and she debuted on 2013. This is her third. She's a black woman, and she's also an advocator of LGBTQ, and her music is a really conglomeration of blues, folk, world, country. She throws in a touch of bluegrass and rock, and this wide palette reflects on her musical education while she was at university. Black Myself is an opener, pinging, shimmering guitar riffs we get here. I'll stand my ground and smile in your face, 'cause I'm black myself, Kia sings defiantly, her voice roaring. It reminded me a little bit of Joan Armatrading a few decades back. And then there's Wild Turkey. This has got alt-rock influences. Dexterous guitar is a highlight. This one's for her mother, who tragically drowned when Kia was a teenager. And there's some thundering drums and droning strings. And Hangover Blues, a nice stirring piece of work that captures modern blues perfectly. And finally, Fancy Drones, Fracture Me, a country blues with strong production. And it has a sort of wheezing style bass with some lovely harmonica at the core. This girl is extremely talented. I suggest you get to listen to it. It's called Wary and Strange by Amethystkia, and it's at my 23rd out of this top 50. 22, recently released. This pushed its way into my top 25. because it's just pure class. It's called Raise the Roof, and it brings together the collaboration for a second time of country singer Alison Krauss and a rock legend Robert Plant. Remember, 13 years ago they delivered Raising Sand. This set is in another impressive collection of songs. It's still got the same mix of folk, rock, country, blues, a bit of Americana thrown in, and most of the songs are duets, but they also take the lead vocal and they combine beautifully as supporting vocal. They're completely in unison, these two. And Plant, of course, brings out his psychedelic world music influences to the party. T-Bone Net on production, features songs by Merle Haggard, Alan Toussaint, the Everly Brothers, and Bert Jansch, to mention a few. And there's an original tune as well, High and Lonesome, which is lovely. Okay, David Hidalgo from Los Lobos chips in on guitar alongside Mark Ribot, and of course the jazz excellent guitar player Bill Frisell. And there's also some pedal steel guitar thrown into the mix. A lovely album, Raise the Roof by Krauss and Plant, and it's my number 22. Go to 21, this is Seeking New Gods. It's the 7th solo project by one Gruff Rhys, who of course was the leader of Super Furry Animals, a band that I can't recall ever listening to, certainly not in any depth, but I love this album. It's a concept album about an ancient volcano on the China-North Korean border, and it ranks as one of his most imaginative solo records. The music, very orchestral, it meeting lush, laid-back psychedelia. A couple of the tracks to highlight: Mausoleum of My Former Self. It's got a very ambling, psychedelic folk meditation feel. And Can't Carry On coaxes swooning vocal harmonies. This album was recorded live with Rhys's group. It was the same band that were involved in his previous album, Babelsberg. Very sweet feel to the music, easily appealing, and every time I listen to it, I like it more. 21 then, Seeking New Gods by Gruff Rhys. And we've hit 20, and this is La Luce by La Luce. This is their third album, and this surf meets garage rock band are all female. They're now functioning as a trio, and they've added in a bit of chamber pop and moody psychedelia to that garage rock feel. The guitar jangles here methodically, but they've added a wider range of keyboards than before, and the vocal harmonies are brought to the fore. Some highlights: Metal Man wraps round some ripping garage rock in futuristic sound effects and thunderous drumming, and gives more room for that guitar to show itself. Watching Cartoons I like as well, cuts the tempo to a stately waltz, adding harpsichord and sitar, and relying on mood rather than performance. All in all, it's pretty impressive stuff, and we've got to really support this all-female band because they deserve it. La Luce is the name of the record, La Luce is the name of the band, and it's my number 20 on my top 25 list. The top 20 now, at number 19, No Gods, No Masters by Garbage. This album tackles everything from systematic racism and gender equality to corporate greed. These guys are very political, particularly their lead singer, Shirley Manson. It's their 7th studio album, and Shirley described the record, and I quote, "This is our 7th record, the significant numerology of which affected the DNA of its contents, the 7 virtues, the 7 sorrows, and the 7 deadly sins. Aggressive digital fun arrives with the men who rule the world, and then we have the pulsing Godhead, which is a frustration over society's centering on the male ego. A woman destroyed takes things further. There's some fury here that leads to a theatrical revenge fantasy. Ominous, atmospheric, industrial beat, And then the rage on Waiting for God, a haunting dirge with Manson empathising for victims of police brutality and discrimination. If you're into politics in music, this is right up your alley, and I love it. It's number 19, it's No Gods, No Masters, and it's by the British American band Garbage. Go to 18 then, We Are, and this is by the pianist and vocalist John Baptiste. He released the title track of this album as a single in support of Black Lives Matter a while back, particularly the protests. But it's his 8th album. Jazz is always at the core of Baptiste's work, but on We Are he adds in lots of pop, R&B, and if you watch American TV, he also performs on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. He's the resident artiste there. Very good he is indeed. And he's also turned up on an Elvis Costello album from last year. And the name escapes me. I think it's Clockface, I think. We also get appearances on this album by Mavis Staples and Quincy Jones, as well as members of Baptiste's family. They all add texture to the album. It's a wonderful journey. Songs reflecting the Big Easy in New Orleans, the funkiness from his boyhood, and a couple of tracks to highlight. I Need You, an eclectic amalgam of boogie-woogie blues and some vintage hip-hop attitude. And then we hear Tell the Truth, very influenced by the band The Meters, a band sorely neglected in the 70s. So that's my 18th selection, We Are by John Baptiste. Way Too Happy by Penelope Isles. This I also recently reviewed. It's indie rock, and a highlight is Miss Moon, which begins with acoustic guitar strings and twinkling keyboards before a lumbering wall of sound, including unintelligible ditty little vocals joins in. Later the track breaks open into a bouncy dream pop fantasy that ends in feedback-laced guitar solos, grooving bass lines, and cymbal crashing shimmers. It has The Cure fingerprints around it, with lots of trippy psychedelic pop jangles. Another standout is Level 11, a ballad where acoustic guitar intertwines with strings beautifully. Couldn't find out much about this band, it has to be said, so my review it focuses on the tracks and how they sound. But it's certainly worth listening to. Which Way to Happy by Penelope Isles. 60, another band, a new band for me. Let Me Do One More by Illenium Hotties. This is the creation of one Sarah Tutsin. She's a typical pop punk, and she produces, writes songs, and is the instrumentalist behind this band. She likes to call herself revved up blend of punk, mixed with indie rock and smart pop. She calls it tender punk. A couple of tracks to give you a flavour. Pool Hopping. You'd have a fair chance of becoming the song of the summer, this, with its abundant hooks, snappy guitars, crisp harmonies, and edgy push and pull between sunny high spirits and uncertainty about relationships. It's certainly full of bubbly energy, and you can contrast that with the cool, smooth atmospherics of Protector, or the 3 a.m. musings of Growth. A thoroughly enjoyable band, thoroughly enjoyable album. And let's have the title again, Let Me Do One More, by Illenium Hotties. And it's my number 16. Hasn't been too many guys or gals from my generation, but this guy does fall into that. He's at number 15. His name's Peter Frampton, and his new album was called Forget the Words. This is the second release by him this year. The first was an array of blues covers that had the illustrious All Blues, the Miles Davis track. This collection also covers a few other artists. There's an excellent version of Reckoner by Radiohead on this. And he also covers Isn't It a Pity by Harrison, George Harrison that is. And there's a Lenny Kravitz song, Are You Gonna Go My Way? And the best of the bunch is probably his rendition of Bowie's Loving the Alien. It's a classy, tasteful collection of instrumentals to capture the guitar playing talents of an artist who's been delivering classic rock and blues for 50 years. He's dominant yet never showy, playing with a deep feeling that ultimately transcends the album's slightly stuffy rearrangements. It's Peter Frampton, it's Forget the Words, and it's my number 15. 14, this album is an absolute feast of enjoyment. It's by Mon Laffy, it's called Says, and it's a combination of bolero, salsa, mariachi, cumbia, folk, norteño and corrido, very much world Latin. She's a Chilean singer and songwriter. This is her 6th album, and this one she chose to root the music in Mexican folk traditions. Her contrasting voices are full of passion and authority. A highlight, Esta Mora no se venda, is a bouncing corrida, while On te mueras por Volvo, my pronunciation of Spanish is not that clever, weds theatrical bolero to classy pop with a rock band and an orchestral string section. If you want to dip into Central and South American music, then go no further. This will make you feel alive, and it's a wonderful set of songs. It's called Says, and it's by Mon Laffy. 13 now, linked in some way to the last collection. This is Native Son, and it's by the LA band Los Lobos. On this album, which is basically an album of covers, Los Lobos pay tribute to the LA music community and the songs that inspired them. Some of the covers are absolutely gorgeous. Bluebird and For What It's Worth, the Stephen Stills Buffalo Springfield is one to note. They also do an absolutely beautiful version of Jamaica Say You Will, of the Jackson Browne song. It has to be said that their versions don't steer too far away from their originals, but they're so immaculately played, it's just a joy to hear them. There's also a Brian Wilson's Beach Boys effort, Sail On Sailor, and I also like the jazzy style of the war song, The World's a Ghetto. There are a few Latin Tex-Mex classics as well. It's a wonderful set of rock, blues, folk, and Latin R&B with a Tex-Mex flavour. And it's basically a remarkable band doing what they do best. It's called Native Son, and it's by Los Lobos, and it's number 13. At St. George's Zoo, this is by a band called Ghouls. They come from folk rock, and they've now generated into surf artists, and they are quite a big nod to the Beach Boys. They mesh with guitar inserts of a style that recalls everyone from Carlos Santana to Barry Melton, who was the guitarist for Country Joe's and the Fish back in the late 60s, early 70s. It's a very solid spin. It's their 3rd album, and they tackle baroque pop, acoustic folk, piano ballads, surf, psychedelia, and sunshine pop. And they also dabble in a bit of garage rock as well. I'm going to go through some of the tracks. It's Over kicks it off. Nice vocal harmonies here. Excel with some horns. Very low keyboards in the back of the mix. And the beat excels in psychedelic late 60s from San Francisco. Smoke and Fire, I like rapid guitar work here over that bird style harmony. It really isn't 69 West Coast revisited this. And then we've got 26th Street Blues. This has got Tom Petty fingerprints all over it. Very rhythmic. And the vocals steer us down that mid-60s mod scene as the guitar solo swallows up the heavy riff. And then I absolutely adore Surfboard. This is a psychedelic haze that leads us into Skippy Guitars and Surf USA. It's very, very Beach Boys influenced, and also a touch of Steve Miller. Whatever it sounds like, it sounds great to me. There's a bit of spoken word for authenticity on here. And finally, Look in Your Mirror bounces like a late 60s Beach Boys mini epic. Exquisite composition. And I wonder what teenage today would hear in this set of new vintage 60s songs. Well, I am very satisfied with this. It's called At St George's Zoo and it's by Ghouls and it's number 12. 11 then, and this is called Not Your Muse, and it's by the British singer and songwriter Celeste. Now, Celeste won the Rising Star Award at the Brit Awards in 2019, and this is her debut album, admittedly a bit late because of COVID, and I absolutely fell in love with this when I heard it for the first time back earlier in the year. There are two absolute standout tracks on this album, although as a complete package it's worth having. The huge hit Stop This Flame, the jazzy style piano leads into that famous R&B smash hit that FIFA used as their soundtrack song for that football tournament that I won't mention too much. It's full of power, full of joy, and it stinks of success. And the other one that I really love is called Love Is Back. Very much a nod to Amy Winehouse here. Just close your eyes and you'll imagine Amy singing this. It's got a punchy R&B 50s style feel to it with horn. Only brief then, because this is getting too long. But Not Your Muse by Celeste at number 11. Okay, we're at number 10 now. Life and Another by Moggerbog. I did review this a while back as well. Moggerbog is a moniker for the musician-songwriter Erin Burgee. It's her sixth album, and it's described as a mix of folk, country, and world genres by Discogs. I don't know about that, but I do enjoy listening to it. Some tracks to comment on. Flower opens it up. It's got a very Tropicalia groove to this one. Tight, jazzy guitar leads and a lot of harmonies. Has a Chrissy Hynde-like voice feel for my liking. Butterfly is another that caught my ear. Cruises in with a jazz beat with sparkling piano and rather odd lead vocals. There's a bit of sax thrown in, almost fusion-like, but it's enchanting. And then Life and Another, she meshes her jazz tones here, Erin, with alt pop guitar chords. The sax is way back in the mix, but works. And there's trinkets of soft lead guitar. And then Before a Black Tea, this skips in with a almost Susie and the Banshees gothic sound. But truly original, it has to be said, with animated touches. There's extravagant synth splashes here, churling vocals, distorted guitar solos, and it could have been sent from San Francisco back in the 70s. It's a wonderful record, Life and Another, and it's by Moggerbog, and it's into the top 10 at number 10. Up to number 9 now. This is If Words Were Flowers by Curtis Harding, also reviewed fairly recently. This is his third album, his first Soul Power I can recommend. That was back in 2014. And his second, Face Your Fear, is also highly regarded. Born in 1979, so he's no spring chicken. His mother was a gospel singer, and he went round with her on her circuits of singing at churches and communities and learned his trade, so to speak, as a gospel singer. And he's also done some rapping on CeeLo Green's 2002 album. let's go into this particular, and I love this. It's soul, it's psychedelic soul. The opening title track has a haunting horn montage that's coupled with some lilting percussive beats, and it prepares us for a palette of soulful harmonies. There's also smacks of jazz. It's absolutely brilliant, but it's instrumental. So then we get to his vocal delivery on Hopeful. There's some feminine style harmonies on this gospel song, but Curtis's lead really strikes you. The strength of the horns are a nod to Curtis Mayfield. They're a bit more genteel than Curtis's use. Scintillating liquid extended guitar breaks mesh with those horns and the harmonies. It's a pure piece of joy. I Can't Hide It is a 60s soul song with psychedelic tones. It really punches the air, this one. Unison vocals, very Motown, I felt. The chorus touches on that sound, but it's very modern and it takes risks. So anyway, I could go on and on and on about this album. It's an absolute gem. It's at number 9 and it's called If Words Were Flowers by Curtis Harding. Number 8 now, and this is Twin Shadow by Twin Shadow. It's their 5th album, and this band are largely George Lewis Jr. He's a Dominican and he loves soul and punk, and he's been around for about a decade, although I hadn't heard him. Chillwave emulates through 90s, 80 electro pop. It's very engaging with notions of nostalgia evident, and he also does power pop ballads. Let's go through a few tracks. Alamania sets us up. Lovely, gentle acoustic soul tune with rapturous vocals, very West Indian inspired chorus harmonies, and exquisite twin guitar breaks sweeten the chorus. Then we got Johnny and Johnny. This has a real Caribbean feel to it. Tropically bounces along and the horns poke through briefly. It's very impressive. Lone Star, synth dominated opening here, very reggae style, lurches in, and I love it. Synth pop mixed in a very original combination. And Brown Sugar, it's got a 50s chord-like progression, but it's added to the 80s synth sounds. And finally, I Want to Be Here, Shotgun, the closer. The horns here drive this up-tempo soul soft rock mix with a touch of nice calypso guitar. It's an exquisite piece of work. It's called Twin Shadow, and it's at number 8 in my countdown. We're moving on now to Jubilee by Japanese Breakfast. And Jubilee by Japanese Breakfast is at number 7. And I hadn't heard of this band. It's basically the project of one singer and songwriter, Michelle Zorner. She started her first band in 2011, Little Big Lead, but now she's become Japanese Breakfast, and it's very much a mix of tropical 80s synth pop with 90s shoegaze, but it's sophisticated, contemporary, very aesthetic. And I'm going to go through some of the tracks. Sorry, I'm just trying to move something. This album has been featured in a lot of top 10s for the year, and quite rightly so. Paprika opens things up. It's got some really high energy female vocals on top of swirling synths and strings, and it's got an accomplished lush production. Be Sweet, much similar in some respects. The crisp synth sound sweeps over you with that disco beat, and it's sonically very expansive. Kokomo Inn has a warm, smoochy feel to this jazz-like ballad with depth in the arrangements, and I love the vocal delivery in front of some exquisite violins. Nice meandering guitar there as well. And then Slide Tackle is a skippy jazz rock song. The rhythm guitar riffs are very soft, great beat, with Sade-type horns sliding in seductively. And finally, posing in bondage, a slow, mystic, string-laden sound creates a montage of sensual delight with echo on the vocals and some mushy oriental layered synth textures. It's very hypnotic. It sums up the album, really. You want to put this on again as soon as you've finished listening to it. So it's Jubilee. It's by a Japanese Breakfast, and it's at number 7 in my countdown. It's getting really hot here in this top 10. At number 6, Daddy's Home by St. Vincent. Annie Clark's new effort. Rhythmic arrangements that just can't be pigeonholed. It's an absolute class act, this album. And I'll touch on a few tracks. She's been around for a while, but I didn't do my homework on her history. All to say, though, I did do a video of her collaboration with David Byrne, which is exquisite as well. Daddy's Home, the title track, slow, seductive, soulful jazz with a leaning to music hall extravagance and over-the-top excesses from Annie Clark. Live in the Dream has some swirling, psychedelic, rapturous guitars. It's very Pink Floyd-like, I thought, with a touch of the Beatles' magical period thrown in. The Melting of the Sun is an introspective homage to women truth-tellers. The harmonies are coupled with some zany guitar again. Annie is an exceptionally talented guitar player, and there's a strange mix of jazz piano on this. And then we've got The Laughing Man, a sardonic ballad here, lots of electronic, pacey, dream-inspired harmonies, coupled with that 70s prog psychedelia. And then finally, Somebody Like Me, rolling acoustic with skippy drumbeat, meets with Annie's subdued vocals. There's an echo steel guitar sound added to the mood of restraint, suggesting vulnerability, and sound is tasteful and restful. This is an album about her touching her relationship, her strained relationship with her father, and that runs through the lyrics throughout the album. It's at number 6. It's an absolute top-class album. It's called Daddy's Home, and it's by St. Vincent. Number 5, Be the Love You Want by Southern Avenue. This band are a 5-piece blues and soul band from Memphis, formed in 2015. They took their name from a street in Memphis. The band's leader is one Ori Naftali, and surprisingly, I got an email from this guy when I did a review of this album, which made me feel quite sweet. He, anyway, linked up with Memphis native Tirini Jackson, who's a vocalist, and she brought along her sister, who was a drummer. And what a combination. I'm going to go through some of the tracks here. I know I'm talking more and more on this. It's going to be a hectically long video. Be the One You Want kicks us off. It sounds like Beyonce's older sister, terrifically rhythmic, and the horns succulent and punchy with bluesy guitar. Control illustrates the congas, very Curtis Mayfield style, and the lead guitar brings us into a palette of soulful vocals, very gospel style, very Aretha Franklin influenced, I think, or Chaka Khan maybe. Don't hesitate, call me. The pace drops a little here. Jackson's voice and Nafide's distorted wah-wah guitar entwine. It's a soul blues that bleeds purity. And then we got Fences, an awesome R&B blues gospel with stunning vocals here, and great guitar, a real soaring solo. And then another gospel singer feast on Heathen Hearts. It's unaccompanied, this one, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So there we have it. This is truly a band that I would love to see live. Southern Avenue, then her latest album, Be the Love You Want, and it's at number 5. 4. This is Stephen Wilson, The Future Bites. Didn't know much about Stephen Wilson really 2 years back. He, of course, is a very famous producer of music, but he's also been in a lot of bands, notably Porcupine Tree. This is an eclectic mix of rock, pop, and electronica, and the production is slick. It's got spacey electronic montages and ballads, very memorable indeed. And I'm just going to try and get my notes going. A few tracks, 12 Things I Forget. Nice pop rhythm here with piano and impactful vocals. Lots of oohs and ahs in the harmonies, plus strings. Eminent Sleaze has bass intro mixes with vocals and a laid-back electronic whiz-style beat. It's a bit rappy, and the R&B comes through with some background feminine vocals. Man of the People. I love this one. It's folk soul vocal. Very George Michael-like. The ballad is adorned by Barbara's heavenly soundscapes as guitars and pillory beats and atmospherics fall over themselves. And then Personal Shopper. This is a 9-minute opus. Electro disco beats New Order style. The vocals are almost ABBA-like at times. Very smooth. And we get a little feel of Elton John reading a current list of famous people to add to this very curious piece of music. Very amusing. He takes a poke at the motives for such consumer madness. Very clever. I could go on, but we're up to 2 minutes already. So that's the number 4 selection. It's by Steve Wilson. 3 now, and at 3, Revolutionary Love. This is by Ali DeFranco, and I reviewed this right at the beginning of the year. She's been making music for 3 decades. Both personal and political activism cut across her work. She's very into racial, social, gender, economic, environmental and romantic issues in a variety of musical contexts. She's based in New Orleans. Just a little taste of this beautiful set of songs. The title track is drenched in gritty soul, lounge jazz style, full of sensual mood. The Hammond organs and the slide guitar combine beautifully, and the horns are back in the mix. Chloroform is another standout. The violins drive us to a Macy Gray-like vocal, but the music, it's a bit difficult to label really. There's some African tribal rhythms in there and syncopated funk mixed with strings. And then Contagious, again strings prominent. It's got a jazzy funky rhythm with seductive vocals and lovely sax touches. Unconventional jazz fusion feel though, very experimental. And lastly, Do or Die. This is a piano Latino Stan Getz-like rhythm, very smoochy, like Annie's vocals lush over you, and then the sax squirts out with flute added to further lighten the mood. It's absolutely beautiful, this album. It's called Revolutionary Love, and it's by Annie DeFranco. And it's at number 3. At number 2 then, this is Flock by Jane Weaver. I don't know Jane. My good friend on VC, Rob Walker, has talked a lot about this album, a lot about Jane Weaver. And she has actually done 11 albums, this being the 11th. It's described genre-wise as psychedelic and in rock and indie pop with an Australian punk feel. For me, it was an exhilarating listen. Heartflow is a synth combined with chiming guitars and soft feminine vocals. It's serene. It has a 70s hippie feel of warmth, harmonically psychedelic. The Revolution of Supervisions brings out a little bit of Tom Tom Club on this, with 80s funk soaring vocals and those chunky guitar riffs and whiny solos. And then we have Stages of Phases, very symphonic intro here that shuffles into pop riff style. If you remember John Conger's way back when, the synthesizers and the keyboards create the flow for Jane's seductive vocals. And then Flock. Nice flute ushers in this title track. And then we skip into an array of harmony, singing, and it's jazz inspired, I think. Very complex rhythms. Very, very likeable. And I forgot Lux, which has a sort of Mike Oldfield type sound. Just threw that one in to the completion of this very, very brief review. So that's number 2. It's Flock by Jane Weaver. My number 1, and for those who follow me, it'll probably come as no surprise that I've selected the album by Paul Weller called Fat Pop. Sorry about that, Rob. 16th studio album, eclectic mix of pop psychedelia with jazz rock, blues rock thrown in, and post-punk tidbits. Standouts, well, it's all a standout really. Cosmic Fringes sets us going, a throbbing beat with synths intertwined with a bass drum combo. It's sharp, and Steve Craddock's guitar run is up there with Weller, and it's a great kickoff. True, there's dual vocals highlighted on this sort of 60s style pop hit. The sax flutters into the guitar, and there's some trumpets as well towards the latter. The title pop track is catchy hip hop beat. Glad Times. Great video for this. Check it out on YouTube. Testify. I loved funk laces with horns and flute. And there's a brief crisp guitar solo. And then dominant orchestral strings to a soul beat greets that pleasure. I could go on and on and on, and I am going to do a little bit more. And in better times, very easy on the ear. But always a lot happening in these pop gems by the Modfather. The horn solo hints at jazz lounge, but it never loses that pop flurry. A marvellous, masterful amalgam of gorgeous music. And then finally, Moving Canvas. Here he touches on his bluesy rock riffs with a tasty solo. But he throws in some trumpets as well. It's fast-paced and it's got a percussive outro. So there we have it. I've finally come to the end. And I guess if you managed to stick with me, well done. 25 albums reviewed on this video. I've done 3 videos now on 2021. So I will be saying goodbye to this last year now, as it is, and start to look forward to the new year. There's an Elvis Costello album due in January. So, your comments, please, about my choices, ones that I missed, that I should have heard, and any comment that you want to say. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Sorry about the casual sitting, but my body is creaking at 67, sorry, not 70. And I'll say goodbye. Thanks a lot.